Hello, dear friends. So glad you could join us at Monkey DFIC. Today's narrative adventure is titled Luffy Awakens Gear 5 against Kaido at Marineford. We put our heart into every story we share. If you appreciate our work, showing some love with a like and subscribe would make our day. The story begins now. Chapter 1, The Emperor's Arrival. The sky above Marineford cracked like an egg. 1 second it was cloudless blue, the next, split wide open by what looked like massive dragon claws tearing through reality itself. Monkey D. Luffy barely registered the change. His entire being focused on a single point across the battlefield, the execution platform where his brother Ace knelt, seconds away from death. Ace. Luffy's voice carried across the chaos, raw and desperate. His body, already pushed beyond reasonable limits after impel down, ached with each movement. But he kept running, kept fighting. Marines fell before him as he charged forward. His arms stretched, punching and grabbing, clearing a path inch by bloody inch. Straw hats breaking through the eastern flank. A Marine captain's voice crackled through transponder snails across the battlefield. All units, redirect. Luffy didn't care how many enemies turned toward him. He just needed to reach Ace. That's all that mattered. Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, commanded the battlefield from the deck of the Moby Dick. His massive bicento swung in devastating arcs, creating tsunamis that washed away Marine forces. His voice boomed with authority as he directed his sons in the rescue mission. Push forward. We're not leaving without Ace. It was working. Slowly, painfully, the combined forces of Luffy, the Whitebeard pirates, and the allies from Impel Down were making progress. Fleet Admiral Sengoku looked increasingly concerned as he stood beside the kneeling Ace, watching the rescue attempt gain momentum. That's when everything changed. The tear in the sky widened, and through it descended an enormous azure dragon. Its scales shimmered like sapphires in the sunlight, massive body coiling through clouds. The beast's eyes burned with ancient malice, scanning the battlefield below with clear intelligence. Is that? Ivankov gasped, violet hair whipping in the sudden gale created by the dragon's wings. Kaido, Jinbei confirmed grimly, water dripping from his blue-skinned fists. The strongest creature. The Emperor of Beasts had arrived at Marineford. For one breathless moment, the entire war paused. Marines and pirates alike froze, staring upward at the monstrous new arrival. Even the Navy admirals, Akainu, Akiji, and Kizaru, shifted their attention to this unexpected development. Sengoku's face darkened. What is the meaning of this? He demanded through gritted teeth, though no one could answer him. The massive dragon circled once, twice, then began its descent toward the plaza. As it approached, it transformed midair. The serpentine body contracted, limbs extending, until a man dropped to the ground with impact enough to crack the stone beneath his feet. Kaido stood, impossibly tall, his wild mane of black hair framing a face scarred by battles and time. The Kanabo at his side seemed to radiate menace. His voice, when he finally spoke, rumbled like distant thunder. So this is what passes for war these days. He surveyed the battlefield with obvious disappointment. Pathetic. Luffy didn't stop running. Kaido's arrival meant nothing to him except another obstacle. He had to reach Ace. That's all that mattered. Gomu Gomu no jet pistol. His fist shot forward at blinding speed, taking down 3 more Marines blocking his path. Kaido's eyes shifted, catching the motion. His gaze landed on Luffy with sudden interest. Who's the brat? He asked nobody in particular. A brave or foolish Marine captain answered, Straw Hat Luffy, sir. Rookie pirate trying to rescue Fire Fist Ace. Kaido's lips curled into something approximating a smile. That's Dragon's son. Interesting. Whitebeard didn't waste time wondering about Kaido's motives. He issued new orders immediately, voice carrying across the battlefield. Marco. Jack. Focus on the Marines. The rest of you, keep an eye on Kaido's movements. Something's not right here. Marco the Phoenix nodded, blue flames erupting around his arms as he took to the sky. Got it, Pops. On the execution platform, Sengoku conferred quickly with the 5 elders via transponder snail. After a tense exchange, he straightened and addressed Garp beside him. New orders. Accelerate the execution. We can't afford to let this situation spiral further out of control. Garp's weathered face showed conflict, but he nodded stiffly. The executioners raised their blades, ready to bring them down on Ace's neck. No. Luffy screamed, seeing the change. He pushed himself harder, legs pumping, breath coming in ragged gasps. Gear second. Steam erupted from his skin as blood pumped faster through his body. He blurred across the battlefield, moving at speeds that left afterimages. Marines fell before they could track his movements. But still, the distance seemed impossible to cross in time. Kaido observed this with growing interest. So that's Conqueror's haki he's using. Untrained, but potent. He hefted his kanabo, the massive club seeming to weigh nothing in his grip. I didn't come here for the fire brat. I came because the winds of change are blowing. His eyes narrowed on Luffy's desperate charge. I want to see if this is where it starts. With shocking speed for his size, Kaido launched himself into the fray. But instead of heading toward the execution platform, he intercepted a group of vice admirals moving to block Luffy. Out of my way, Kaido growled, swinging his club in a devastating arc that sent Marines flying. The boy interests me. Confusion rippled through both pirate and Marine forces. Was Kaido helping Luffy? Or simply clearing the path to claim him for himself? Whitebeard's eyes narrowed dangerously. That beast has his own agenda, he muttered to himself. Then, louder, division commanders. New formation. Use Kaido's interference to our advantage but don't trust his intentions. Luffy didn't question this unexpected assistance. He just kept running, kept fighting. Admiral Kizaru appeared before him in a flash of light, leg raised for a devastating kick. My, straw hat. You've come far, but this is where it ends. Move. Luffy roared, his fist blackening with armament haki, a technique he'd been desperately trying to master during the chaotic battle. The punch connected with Kizaru's kick, creating a shockwave that rippled outward. Kizaru's eyebrows rose in surprise. Oh. You've learned some new tricks. Before they could continue, a massive blue tail swept between them as Kaido, back in dragon form, roared overhead. The distraction gave Luffy the opening he needed to slip past. On the execution platform, Sengoku had had enough. Do it now, he commanded the executioners. The blades began their descent toward Ace's neck. Time seemed to slow for Luffy. He was still too far away. He couldn't make it. But he had to try. ACE, he screamed, reaching out with everything he had. Gear third. He bit into his thumb, blowing air into his bone, his arm expanding to gigantic proportions. Gomu Gomu no elephant gun. The massive fist shot forward with unbelievable speed, aimed not at the executioners but at the platform itself. The impact was thunderous, wood splintering, stone cracking. The entire structure tilted precariously. The executioners stumbled, their blades missing Ace's neck by inches. Sengoku growled in frustration, transforming into his Buddha form, golden light illuminating the tilting platform. Enough of these delays. But the momentary reprieve had given Marco the Phoenix the opening he needed. Blue flames streaked across the sky as he dive-bombed the platform, talons extended. Hang on, Ace. Marco called, engaging Sengoku in a flurry of attacks. Luffy pressed forward, cutting through the chaos toward his goal. But the strain of using both gear second and third in his already exhausted state was taking its toll. His vision blurred, muscles screaming in protest. Can't stop. He gasped, stumbling but forcing himself onward. Kaido, now back in human form, watched this display with growing intrigue. "The boy has spirit," he commented to one of his officers who had arrived on the battlefield. "But spirit alone isn't enough to survive what's coming." "Should we capture him now, Lord Kaido?" the officer asked. Kaido shook his head. "Not yet. I want to see how far he can go. If he's the one Joy Boy's powers will awaken in, it won't happen while he's in chains." The battlefield had devolved into complete chaos. What had started as a calculated war between the Marines and the Whitebeard pirates now included the wild card of Kaido's forces. Three-way battles erupted across Marineford, with alliances forming and dissolving moment by moment. Whitebeard, sensing the changing tide, made a strategic decision. All forces. New priority. Secure Ace and retreat immediately. His voice boomed across the plaza. "This is no longer a war we can win conventionally." His commanders acknowledged the orders, shifting their tactics accordingly. Defense became the priority, creating a corridor through which Ace could escape once freed. Luffy pushed through another line of Marines, his body moving on pure willpower now. He could see Ace clearly, still kneeling on the tilting platform, Marco keeping Sengoku at bay above him. "Almost, there." Luffy panted. A wall of magma suddenly erupted before him, the heat so intense it scorched his skin even from feet away. Admiral Akainu emerged from the molten barrier, eyes cold with deadly purpose. "Criminal blood must be purged," the admiral intoned, his arm transforming into a magma fist. "The son of dragon ends here." Luffy skidded to a stop, knowing from instinct that this opponent was different. The killing intent radiating from Akainu was unlike anything he'd faced before. "I don't care who you are," Luffy said, dropping into a fighting stance. "You're not stopping me from saving my brother." Akainu's response was immediate and merciless. A magma fist the size of a small boat hurtled toward Luffy, the air shimmering with heat around it. Luffy dodged by a hair's breadth, feeling his skin blister from proximity alone. He countered with a hockey-infused punch that connected solidly with Akainu's jaw, only to have his knuckles sizzle against the Admiral's liquid fire body. "Arg!" Luffy cried out, shaking his burned hand. Akainu didn't allow recovery time. Another magma attack followed, then another, each more devastating than the last. Luffy found himself on the defensive, using his superior speed and flexibility to avoid death by inches each time. "You cannot outrun justice," Akainu declared, pressing his advantage. From across the battlefield, Kaido observed the uneven match with calculating eyes. "The boy is outmatched," he noted to his lieutenant. "But he's not breaking." "Interesting." The Emperor made no move to interfere this time, simply watching as Luffy desperately fought against an opponent far beyond his current abilities. Luffy knew he was in trouble. Even with Gear Second active, he couldn't land effective hits on Akainu, and each near miss was taking its toll on his body. But giving up wasn't an option. "Gomu Gomu no Jet Gatling," he cried, launching a barrage of lightning-fast punches. Most passed harmlessly through Akainu's transforming body, but a few hockey-infused strikes connected solidly enough to force the Admiral back a step. A step was all Luffy needed. He used the momentary opening to sprint past, focusing again on the execution platform. "Oh no you don't." Akainu roared, magma exploding from his body in all directions. A wall of water rose suddenly, intercepting the magma in a cloud of steam. Jinbei stood firm, his fishman karate creating a momentary barrier. "Go, Luffy-kun!" Jinbei shouted. "I'll hold him off." Luffy didn't waste the opportunity. He pushed forward, closing the distance to the platform. But his body was reaching its limits. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, his muscles spasming from overexertion. On the platform, a new development, Garp, the legendary marine hero, stood frozen, caught between duty and family as he watched his grandson's desperate approach. "Luffy!" The old man whispered, conflict written across his weathered features. Sengoku, still fighting Marco, noticed his friend's hesitation. Garp. Remember your duty. Below, Whitebeard had engaged Vice Admiral John Giant, creating an opening in the Marine's defensive line. The old Emperor's power was awesome to behold, each swing of his bicento causing the very air to crack. The era is changing, Whitebeard declared, eyes finding Kaido across the battlefield. Though not in the way any of us expected. Kaido met the gaze of his fellow Emperor with a challenging grin. The weak don't get to choose how they die, Newgate. Their exchange was interrupted by a collective gasp from across the battlefield. Luffy, somehow, had reached the base of the execution platform. His legs trembled with exhaustion, but determination burned in his eyes. "Ace," he shouted up at his brother. "I'm coming." Ace, still kneeling with sea-stone cuffs, looked down with a mixture of hope and horror. "Luffy, you idiot. You should have stayed away." Luffy ignored this, gathering his remaining strength. Gear 3rd. His arm inflated once more, growing to colossal size. With a primal scream, he smashed the fist into the platform supports. The already damaged structure groaned ominously. "One more." Luffy gasped, preparing another strike. A shadow fell over him. Kaido stood nearby, observing with arms crossed. "You're at your limit, boy," the Emperor stated matter-of-factly. "Those gears of yours, they're clever tricks, but not enough for what you face." Luffy spared him barely a glance. "Don't care what you think. Getting Ace out of here." He launched the second strike, and this time the platform supports gave way completely. The structure began to topple, Sengoku, Garp, Ace, and the executioners all losing their footing as it collapsed. Marco swooped in, aiming for Ace. "Got you," a laser of light pierced through his blue flames. Kizaru appeared mid-air, foot glowing from the attack. "Not so fast, Phoenix," the Admiral drawled. The platform crashed to the ground in a cloud of dust and debris. When it cleared, Ace was visible, still cuffed but now on ground level, much more accessible. Luffy staggered toward him, every step an act of will. "Ace, gonna get you out." Sengoku, recovering quickly, moved to intercept. "This execution will proceed." But before either could reach Ace, a massive form landed between them, cracking the stone beneath. Kaido stood, Kanabo resting on one shoulder, blocking both approaches. "Enough," the Emperor declared. "This has gone beyond a simple execution." Sengoku's face contorted with rage. "You have no authority here, Kaido." Kaido laughed, the sound echoing across the suddenly quieter battlefield. "Authority? Look around you, Buddha. Your carefully orchestrated demonstration of justice has descended into mayhem." He gestured broadly at the three-way war raging around them. "And now you face two emperors instead of one." Luffy didn't care about this posturing. He tried to move around Kaido, focused solely on reaching Ace. The Emperor's massive hand shot out, grabbing Luffy by the back of his vest and lifting him effortlessly. "Not yet, Straw Hat," Kaido rumbled. "You interest me, but you're still too weak." Luffy struggled violently in the grip. "Let go. I have to save Ace." "Kaido." Whitebeard's voice boomed as he approached, the ground trembling with each step. "The boy is not your concern." The standoff intensified, Kaido holding Luffy, Sengoku poised to strike, Whitebeard advancing menacingly. Around them, the battle continued, but all attention had shifted to this central confrontation. Ace, still kneeling and cuffed, watched with growing horror. "Luffy, just run, please." Kaido's eyes narrowed as he assessed Luffy more closely. "You have the will of D," he observed. "And Conqueror's haki, though untrained." He tilted his head. "But something else sleeps within you. Something older than all of us." Luffy had no idea what Kaido was talking about, and he didn't care. He bit down hard on the Emperor's hand. Kaido didn't flinch, but his expression showed surprise at the audacity. Fearless, too. Or perhaps just stupid. I said let go. Luffy roared, and suddenly a wave of Conqueror's haki exploded from him, raw and untamed. Nearby Marines collapsed unconscious, and even Kaido's eyes widened slightly. The Emperor's grip loosened just enough for Luffy to twist free. He landed on his feet, instantly sprinting toward Ace. Sengoku moved to intercept, Golden Buddha form expanding. This ends now. A massive shockwave suddenly rocked the plaza as Whitebeard slammed his Bicento into the ground. Enough, the old Emperor thundered. This boy has shown more courage than the entire world government. The momentary distraction was all Luffy needed. He reached Ace, dropping to his knees beside his brother. The key, Luffy gasped, searching his pockets frantically. I had it somewhere. Ace stared at his brother in disbelief. You actually made it, he whispered, voice choked with emotion. A shadow fell over them both. They looked up to see Kaido looming above. The key won't be necessary, the Emperor stated. He raised his kanabo and brought it down with terrifying force, not on the brothers, but on Ace's sea stone cuffs. The supposedly unbreakable restraints shattered. For a moment, everyone stared in shock. Kaido breaking Ace free? It made no sense. The Emperor straightened, addressing the battlefield at large. I didn't come for Fire Fist, he announced. I came because the winds are changing. Ancient powers stir. His gaze fixed on Luffy. I wanted to see the boy some call the next Joy Boy. Whitebeard's expression darkened. So that's your game. Sengoku, sensing the situation spiraling completely out of control, made a snap decision. All forces. Focus fire on Fire Fist Ace and Straw Hat Luffy. Do not let them escape. Marines surged forward from all sides. Ace, now free, flames erupting around his fists, stood protectively in front of his exhausted brother. Stay behind me, Luffy, Ace commanded, fire dancing across his shoulders. But Luffy struggled to his feet. We fight together, he insisted, though he could barely stand. Kaido observed them with something like amusement. Brotherly loyalty. Touching. He turned away, apparently losing interest. You're free now, Fire Fist. Let's see if you and your brother can escape this trap. The beast pirates, taking this as a signal, suddenly shifted tactics, attacking Marines rather than Whitebeard's forces or the brothers. Complete chaos erupted once more as the battlefield realigned. Whitebeard seized the opportunity. All forces, retreat formation. The old Emperor commanded. Get to the ships. We have Ace. Pirates began fighting their way toward the bay where their ships waited. The Marines, now dealing with attacks from both pirate crews, struggled to maintain any coherent defense. Ace grabbed Luffy's arm, pulling it over his shoulders. Come on, little brother. We're getting out of here. Luffy nodded weakly, the strain of the past hours catching up with him all at once. But as they turned to flee, a wall of magma rose before them. Akainu emerged, eyes burning with fanatical justice. Pirates, he spat the word like poison. The bloodline of Roger ends today. Ace pushed Luffy behind him, flames intensifying. You'll have to go through me first. Gladly, Akainu growled, launching forward with a magma-coated fist aimed directly at Ace's heart. Time slowed. Luffy saw it happening, saw death coming for his brother. His body moved on pure instinct, fueled by desperate love. No! He screamed, shoving Ace aside with strength he didn't know he still possessed. The magma fist passed between them, missing both by inches. The heat alone was enough to burn their skin, but the lethal blow had been avoided. Ace stared at Luffy in shock. In the original timeline, this would have been his end, taking that fist to save his brother. But Luffy had changed that destiny with a single, desperate push. Akainu's momentum carried him past the brothers. He turned, magma dripping from his fists, face contorted with rage. Your interference ends here, Straw Hat. Before he could attack again, a massive blue tail slammed into him from the side, sending him crashing through several buildings. Kaido, in dragon form, hovered above. Boring, the dragon rumbled. Is this the best the Navy has to offer? Whitebeard appeared beside the brothers, massive even compared to Ace. Get to the ships, he ordered. Marco will cover your retreat. Ace hesitated, clearly torn. Pops, you're coming too, right? The old man's smile held secrets. My era is ending, son. But yours, and your brothers', is just beginning. No. Ace protested. We all leave together. Whitebeard's hand, gentle despite its size, rested briefly on Ace's shoulder. Some stands must be made. Now go. That's an order from your captain. Luffy, despite his exhaustion, understood what was happening. Ace, he said softly. We need to respect his choice. Tears streamed down Ace's face as he finally nodded. Aye, Captain. One last time. With that, the brothers turned and ran toward the bay, Ace supporting Luffy's weakened body. Behind them, Whitebeard planted himself firmly, Bicento raised. I am Whitebeard, he roared, challenging all comers. And I will give my sons the time they need to escape. Kaido, circling overhead, laughed. A worthy end, Newgate. The retreat was desperate, marines and obstacles at every turn. But the Whitebeard commanders formed a protective cordon around Ace and Luffy, cutting down anyone who got too close. Almost there, Ace encouraged as they neared the ships. Just a little further. Luffy nodded, pushing his body beyond all reasonable limits. He'd saved Ace. That was all that mattered. But the danger wasn't over. A blinding light appeared before them as Kizaru materialized, foot raised for a lethal kick. Leaving so soon, the admiral drawled. Marco swooped in, blue flames trailing. I don't think so. He intercepted Kizaru mid-attack, both figures tumbling through the air in a tangle of light and fire. The brothers pressed on, reaching the edge of the bay at last. Whitebeard pirates called encouragement from the ships, preparing to sail the moment everyone was aboard. We made it, Ace breathed, relief evident. That's when they heard it, a terrible, pained roar from behind. They turned to see Whitebeard surrounded by admirals and vice-admirals, blood streaming from multiple wounds. But the old man was still standing, still fighting. Ace's face crumpled. Pops. He made his choice, Jinbei said firmly, appearing beside them. Honor it by surviving. With a heavy heart, Ace nodded. They reached the ships, pirates helping pull them aboard. The Moby Dick and allied vessels began pulling away from Marineford, cannons firing to cover their retreat. Luffy collapsed on the deck, breathing heavily. He'd done it. He'd saved Ace. But at what cost? From his position, he could see Whitebeard standing defiant on the plaza, holding off an entire army by himself. And circling above, Kaido remained, watching everything with ancient, calculating eyes. Why? Luffy whispered, the question directed at no one in particular. Why did Kaido help us? Ace, kneeling beside him, shook his head. I don't know. He mentioned Joy Boy, an ancient figure from the Void Century. Joy Boy. Luffy repeated, the name feeling strangely familiar though he'd never heard it before. Before they could discuss further, a commotion drew their attention. Marines had launched pursuit ships, and Navy battleships were moving to block the bay exit. They're going to trap us in, someone shouted. Ace stood, flames erupting around him. Not while I'm breathing. He raised his hands, summoning a massive wall of fire between their retreating ships and the pursuers. This is our chance. Full speed ahead. The pirates redoubled their efforts, ship surging forward through the fiery barrier Ace had created. Back on the plaza, Whitebeard had finally fallen to one knee, body riddled with wounds but spirit unbroken. He looked out at the bay, seeing his sons escaping. "Good," he murmured. "The future is safe." Sengoku, bloodied but still standing, approached the fallen emperor. "It's over, Whitebeard. Your era ends today." Edward Newgate smiled, blood staining his white mustache. "My era, yes. But what comes next will shake the very foundations of your justice." Before Sengoku could respond, a massive shape landed beside them. Kaido, back in human form, regarded Whitebeard with something approaching respect. "The old guard falls," Kaido observed. "But you've done what you came for, Newgate. The fire brat lives." Whitebeard chuckled, the sound wet with blood. "Not just Ace. You saw him too, didn't you? The boy in the straw hat." Kaido's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. Time will tell if he's truly the one." "He is," Whitebeard said with certainty. "And he'll be back. Stronger than any of us imagine." With that declaration, the great pirate summoned his remaining strength and stood once more. His voice, when he spoke, carried across the entire battlefield. "One Piece is real." The proclamation echoed across Marineford, across the world via the broadcast, igniting dreams in countless hearts. With those words, Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, committed his final act of defiance against the world government. Kaido watched as Marines swarmed the old emperor, finally bringing him down. "A good death," he commented. Then, turning to Sengoku, "This isn't over, Buddha. It's barely begun." With that, the beast emperor transformed once more into his dragon form and took to the skies, heading away from Marineford. His forces, responding to some unseen signal, began retreating as well. On the escaping ship, Luffy felt something change in the world, a shift in the atmosphere itself. He knew, somehow, that Whitebeard was gone. "Ace," he said quietly. I think your captain just died." Ace, who had been directing the escape, turned sharply. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't question how Luffy knew. He simply nodded, fire dimming around his clenched fists. "He saved us all," Ace whispered. "The greatest father anyone could ask for." The ships had cleared the bay now, entering open ocean. The marine pursuers fell behind, unable to match their speed with the wind and currents in their favor. Luffy tried to stand, wanting to comfort his brother, but his legs gave way. His vision darkened around the edges. "Luffy!" Ace caught him before he hit the deck. "Someone get a doctor." But Luffy barely heard him. The strain of impel down, the war, pushing his gears beyond their limits, it had all caught up with him at once. As consciousness faded, one thought remained. He'd saved Ace. History had changed. And somehow, he knew that Kaido would be back, that this encounter was just the beginning of something much larger than any of them understood. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was a massive blue dragon, distant now but still visible, flying not toward Wano but in another direction entirely. "Looking for something," Luffy murmured as he passed out in his brother's arms. Aboard his own ship, Kaido reached a similar conclusion. "The boy isn't ready," he told his commanders. "But he will be. And when he awakens fully, I'll be waiting." The Emperor's eyes turned toward the horizon, toward the island where ancient secrets lay buried. "Joy Boy returns," he muttered. And with him, the dawn of a new era. Back on the fleeing Moby Dick, Ace cradled his unconscious brother, tears falling freely now for both Whitebeard's sacrifice and gratitude for Luffy's impossible rescue. "Rest, little brother," he whispered. "You've done enough. More than enough." Marco the Phoenix landed on the deck nearby, his usual lazy expression replaced by grim determination. "We're clear for now," he reported. "But this isn't over. The Navy won't let this stand. And Kaido? Ace asked. Marco shook his head. Headed northeast. Not following us, at least for now. He looked down at Luffy. What did he want with your brother? Ace's protective hold tightened. I don't know. Something about Joy Boy and ancient powers. His jaw set firmly. But whatever it is, they'll have to go through me to get to him. Marco nodded, blue flames flickering across his shoulders. Not just you. All of us. Pops gave his life so we could escape, so both of you could escape. We won't waste that sacrifice. As the ship sailed further from Marineford, the reality of what had happened began to sink in for everyone aboard. Whitebeard was gone. But Ace had been saved, history rewritten. And Luffy, unconscious but alive, had somehow caught the interest of not just the world government but one of the four emperors as well. Whatever came next would change the world of pirates forever. The War of the Best had ended differently than fate had originally decreed. And in the heart of the chaos, sleeping within Monkey D. Luffy, something ancient stirred, something that would soon awaken to the sound of the drums of liberation. Chapter 2, Breaking Point. Luffy woke up to the taste of blood in his mouth and the rhythmic rocking of a ship beneath him. For a split second, he couldn't remember where he was or what had happened. Then it all crashed back, Impel Down, Marineford, Whitebeard, Kaido, and most importantly, Ace. He bolted upright, instantly regretting it as pain shot through every muscle in his body. The small medical cabin spun around him, and he would have fallen back if strong hands hadn't caught his shoulders. Easy, little brother. I'm right here. Luffy blinked the blurriness from his vision. Ace sat beside the bed, dark circles under his eyes but very much alive. Very much free. You did it, Ace said softly. You crazy, impossible idiot. You actually did it. Relief flooded through Luffy's body, temporarily washing away the pain. He grabbed Ace in a rubbery hug, squeezing tight enough to make his brother grunt. You're okay, Luffy mumbled into Ace's shoulder. You're really okay. Thanks to you. Ace pulled back, ruffling Luffy's hair like he used to when they were kids. Though we're not exactly in the clear yet. As if on cue, the ship lurched violently, sending medical supplies crashing to the floor. The sounds of shouting and cannons echoed from above. What's happening? Luffy struggled to stand, his legs wobbling dangerously. Ace pushed him back down. Navy's still on our tail. And worse. His expression darkened. Kaido's back. Kaido. But he left. I saw him fly away. Changed course about 3 hours ago. He's been shadowing us since. Ace's fists clenched, small flames dancing between his fingers. Marco thinks he's waiting for something specific. Another explosion rocked the ship. This time Luffy wouldn't be deterred. He grabbed his straw hat from the bedside table and jammed it on his head. I'm going up. Luffy, you're in no condition, I'm going. The look in his eyes silenced further protests. I didn't save you just to lose you because I stayed in bed. Ace sighed but helped Luffy stand. Fine. But stay close to me. They made their way topside, Luffy leaning heavily on his brother. The scene that greeted them was chaotic. 3 marine battleships pursued the Moby Dick and its sister vessels, cannons firing relentlessly. Whitebeard pirates returned fire while others worked frantically to keep the damaged ships moving. But what drew all eyes was the massive azure dragon circling overhead like a predatory bird, occasionally diving low enough to snap at pursuing marine ships before rising again. What's he playing at? Luffy asked, watching Kaido's aerial dance. Toying with us, Marco answered, approaching with his usual slouched posture belying the tension in his eyes. He's hurting us. Hurting? Ace echoed. Marco nodded grimly. Northeast. Away from our planned escape route. There's nothing in that direction except, he broke off, blue flames flickering across his shoulders as he squinted at the horizon. Except what? Luffy pressed. Except an island that shouldn't exist, Marco finished quietly. Pops called it Converging Island. It appears and disappears with certain tide patterns. Ancient place. Bad news. Before Luffy could ask more questions, a new voice called out. Straw Hat's awake. It was Jinbei, making his way across the chaotic deck. Good. We need everyone capable of fighting. Why is that fish stick so interested in Luffy anyway? Ace growled, watching Kaido bank sharply in the sky above. Jinbei's expression grew troubled. During your execution, Kaido was shouting about Joy Boy and ancient weapons. I believe he thinks Luffy might be connected somehow. Joy Boy again, Luffy muttered. Who is that? Nobody answered because at that moment, Kaido dive-bombed directly toward the Moby Dick. Pirates scattered, some firing cannons that the dragon easily avoided. At the last second, he pulled up, wind from his massive wings nearly knocking several men overboard. As he rose, his voice boomed across the water, Straw Hat. Show me your worth. Luffy stepped forward instinctively, but Ace yanked him back. Don't even think about it. He wants me, Luffy stated the obvious. Maybe if I, no, Ace, Jinbei, and Marco said simultaneously. Kaido circled once more, then transformed midair. His human form dropped onto the deck of the Moby Dick with impact enough to crack the wood beneath his feet. Pirates immediately surrounded him, weapons drawn, but kept their distance. The Emperor straightened to his full, imposing height, Kanabo resting casually on one shoulder. His eyes found Luffy immediately. Still standing. Good. He took a step forward, and the temperature of the entire deck seemed to drop. I have questions for you, boy. Marco moved between them, blue flames erupting around his arms. You're not welcome here, Kaido. Whatever business you think you have with Straw Hat can wait. Kaido regarded Marco with bored annoyance. The fledgling phoenix thinks he can stop me. Your captain is dead, bird. You're all living on borrowed time. The reminder of Whitebeard's sacrifice sent a ripple of grief and anger through the assembled pirates. Several stepped forward, weapons raised higher. Kaido's eyes narrowed. Is this how you honor Newgate? With suicide? His grip tightened on the Kanabo. I could sink all your ships before any of you land a single hit. Then why haven't you? Luffy challenged, pushing past Marco despite his protests. The Emperor's attention fixed on him with new interest. Because dead men tell no tales, he rumbled. And you, Straw Hat, have quite a tale yet to tell. Before anyone could respond, a cannon blast ripped through the tension. One of the pursuing marine ships had drawn close enough for a direct hit on the Moby Dick's stern. The ship lurched violently. Kaido seemed not to notice. The world government fears what you might become, he continued, eyes never leaving Luffy. They sense it, even if they don't understand it. The power that sleeps within your blood. Another cannon blast. This time, Kaido glanced irritably at the marine ships. With a casual swing of his Kanabo, he sent a compressed air slash across the water that cleaved the closest battleship in half. Noisy insects, he muttered. The display of power left everyone momentarily speechless. Kaido turned back to Luffy. Come with me willingly, and I'll ensure your brother and these pirates escape safely. Refuse, and... He gestured at the sinking marine ship. I'll be less discriminating about where my Kanabo lands next. Luffy's mind raced. He was still weak from Marineford, nowhere near strong enough to fight an emperor. But surrendering meant abandoning everyone who had risked their lives to save Ace, and abandoning his own dream. I'm not going anywhere with you, Luffy declared, his voice steadier than his legs. Whatever you think I am, I'm not. Kaido studied him for a long moment. You don't even know what you are, he finally said, something like disappointment in his voice. Very well. We do this the hard way. The Emperor raised his kanabo, the weapon suddenly coated in menacing black haki. But before he could strike, a wall of fire erupted between him and Luffy. You'll have to go through me first, Ace snarled, flames dancing around his entire body. Kaido's laugh rumbled like distant thunder. Fire fist. So eager to die after your brother went to such lengths to save you? Nobody's dying today, Luffy stated, stepping through the flames to stand beside his brother. The heat didn't bother him, Ace's fire had never burned him. That remains to be seen, Kaido replied. Then, with shocking speed for his size, he attacked. The kanabo whistled through the air directly at Luffy's head. He barely managed to duck, feeling the wind of its passage ruffle his hair. Ace counterattacked immediately, launching a fist-sized fireball that Kaido batted away like an annoying insect. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of the vast gulf between an emperor and even the strongest of the Whitebeard commanders. Marco, Ace, and several others attacked Kaido simultaneously, while Jinbei helped Luffy move to safer ground. We need to retreat, Jinbei urged, supporting Luffy's weight. This isn't a fight we can win. I can't leave Ace, Luffy insisted, watching his brother launch increasingly desperate fire attacks that seemed to have minimal effect on Kaido. I didn't save him just to lose him now. On the deck, Marco transformed fully into his phoenix form, blue flames engulfing his body as he dive-bombed Kaido from above. The Emperor caught him mid-air, massive hand closing around the bird's neck. You're a century too early to challenge me, Phoenix, Kaido growled, slamming Marco into the deck with enough force to crack the planks beneath him. Marco reverted to human form, blood trickling from his mouth. Maybe, he gasped. But we only need to hold you long enough for our ships to reach safe waters. Kaido's eyes narrowed. You think I'm alone? He turned toward the horizon, where new shapes had appeared, massive ships flying the flag of the beast pirates. My fleet has been tracking us since we left Marineford. The revelation sent a wave of despair through the Whitebeard pirates. Already weakened from the war, pursued by marines, and now faced with an emperor's full forces, their situation had just gone from desperate to virtually hopeless. Luffy felt something snap inside him. He'd come too far, sacrificed too much, to lose now. With a strength born of sheer willpower, he pushed away from Jinbei. Gear second, he whispered, steam beginning to rise from his skin as he forced his blood to pump faster. Jinbei grabbed his arm. Luffy-kun, you're still too weak. But Luffy wasn't listening. His focus had narrowed to a single point, Kaido standing over his beaten brother, kanabo raised for a finishing blow. Leave him alone. Luffy roared, launching himself across the deck at speeds that left afterimages. His haki-coated fist slammed into Kaido's side with enough force to make the Emperor take a half-step back, not from the impact but from surprise at the sudden attack. His eyes locked onto Luffy with newfound interest. There it is, Kaido murmured. A glimpse of what sleeps within you. Luffy didn't waste time wondering what he meant. He pressed his advantage, unleashing a barrage of gear second enhanced punches. Gomu Gomu no Jet Gatling. The attacks connected with Kaido's torso rapid fire, each impact like hitting solid steel. The Emperor stood there, letting Luffy exhaust himself, a bemused expression on his face. Is this all you have? He finally asked. Disappointing. With a casual backhand, he sent Luffy flying across the deck. The rubber man crashed into the mast, wood splintering around him. Ace struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. Luffy. Kaido turned back to Ace. Your brother has potential, but he's not ready. Not even close. He raised his kanabo again. Perhaps if I kill you, it will awaken something more interesting in him. No. Luffy screamed, pushing himself up despite the pain radiating through his body. Gear third. He bit into his thumb, blowing air into his bone. His arm expanded massively, hardening with haki until it gleamed black in the sunlight. Gomu Gomu no elephant gun. The giant fist shot forward, aimed directly at Kaido's head. This time, the Emperor actually had to move, shifting slightly to avoid the attack. The massive fist crashed into the deck where he'd been standing, creating a hole large enough for a person to fall through. Better, Kaido acknowledged. But still too weak. Luffy gasped for breath, the combined strain of gear second and third draining what little energy he had left. His vision blurred, arms and legs feeling like lead weights. "I won't let you hurt Ace," he panted. Kaido regarded him curiously. "Your brother isn't my target, Straw Hat. You are." He approached slowly, deliberately. "But clearly you need proper motivation to show your true strength." The Emperor surveyed the ship, taking in the wounded Whitebeard pirates struggling to rise, the approaching beast pirate fleet, the marine ship still in pursuit despite the loss of one of their number. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order," he mused. Then, faster than anyone could react, he spun and hurled his kanabo like a massive javelin toward the nearest allied Whitebeard ship. The weapon tore through the air, trailing Black Hawkeye, before impacting the ship's hull with catastrophic force. Wood exploded outward, the entire vessel lurching as water rushed in through the massive breach. Screams filled the air as pirates abandoned ship, jumping into the ocean to escape the rapidly sinking vessel. Kaido extended his hand, and somehow, impossibly, the kanabo returned to his grip, flying through the air as if pulled by an invisible force. "That's one," the Emperor stated coldly. "How many more before you show me what you're really capable of, Joy Boy?" "Stop calling me that," Luffy shouted, struggling to stay on his feet. "My name is Monkey D. Luffy. I'm going to be king of the pirates." Something flickered in Kaido's eyes, amusement, perhaps, or something harder to define. "King of the pirates? You can't even protect your own brother." To prove his point, he moved with that same impossible speed, suddenly appearing beside Ace. Before anyone could react, his massive hand closed around Ace's throat, lifting him off the deck. "Fire melts at high enough temperatures," Kaido observed, watching Ace struggle against his grip. "Or under enough pressure." Ace's body erupted in flames, trying to burn the hand that held him. But Kaido's grip didn't loosen, his skin seemingly impervious to the heat. "Haki," the Emperor explained casually. "Yours isn't strong enough yet, Fire Fist." Luffy felt panic rising in his chest. After everything they'd been through, after changing history itself to save Ace at Marineford, he was about to lose his brother all over again. "Let him go," Luffy demanded, trying to sound threatening despite his weakened state. "Your fight is with me." "Exactly," Kaido agreed. "So show me what you can do, Straw Hat. Show me why the world government fears your bloodline enough to risk war with Whitebeard." His grip tightened on Ace's throat, making him gasp for air. "Show me Joy Boy's power, or watch your brother die." Something changed in Luffy then, a shift so fundamental that everyone on deck felt it. The air around him seemed to thicken, pressure building like the moments before a storm. "I said," Luffy growled, voice deeper than usual, "let him go." A wave of Conqueror's haki exploded from him, raw and untamed. Lesser pirates, both Whitebeard's allies and marines on distant ships, collapsed unconscious. Even Marco and Jinbei staggered under the force of it. Kaido, however, looked delighted. "Yes," he roared, eyes gleaming with excitement. "That's it. Show me more." But the exertion cost Luffy dearly. He swayed on his feet, vision darkening at the edges. He'd pushed too hard, too soon after Marineford. Seeing his brother's distress, Ace renewed his struggles. "Luffy, stop. You'll kill yourself. Can't let you die." Luffy gasped, forcing his body to stay upright through sheer willpower. Kaido's expression turned contemplative. "Perhaps you need more time to recover before you can access your true power." He released Ace suddenly, letting him drop to the deck. "Very well. I'm not unreasonable. The Emperor turned, walking to the rail of the ship. 3 days, he announced to the assembled pirates. I'll give you 3 days to prepare. Meet me at Converging Island. He pointed to a dark smudge on the horizon that hadn't been visible before. If you flee, I'll hunt down every last one of you. If you come prepared to fight. His grin showed teeth like a predator's. We'll see what you're truly made of, Straw Hat. With that, Kaido transformed into his dragon form and launched into the sky. He circled once overhead, then flew toward his approaching fleet. As soon as he was gone, Luffy collapsed to his knees, coughing blood. Ace and Jinbei were at his side instantly. Medical Bay, now, Jinbei ordered, helping lift the rubber man. No, Luffy protested weakly. Need to plan. You need to rest, Ace countered, supporting his brother's weight. You're no good to anyone dead. As they helped him below deck, Marco called for the remaining ships to regroup. The beast pirates weren't attacking, seemingly honoring Kaido's 3-day deadline, but the Marines continued their pursuit, though at a more cautious distance now. In the medical bay, Luffy drifted in and out of consciousness as the ship's doctor examined him. Words filtered through his haze: extreme exhaustion, organ stress, shouldn't even be alive after Impel Down and Marineford. Finally, the doctor stepped back, speaking to Ace and the others gathered around the bed. He needs rest. Complete rest. His body is shutting down from overexertion. We don't have time for complete rest, Marco responded grimly. Kaido will be waiting at that island in 3 days. Then we don't go to the island, Ace argued. We change course as soon as we lose the Marines. Jinbei shook his head. Kaido wasn't bluffing. He'll hunt us down. And in our current state. So we're just supposed to deliver Luffy to him? Ace demanded, flames flickering around his clenched fists. No, a weak voice interrupted from the bed. Luffy had regained consciousness, eyes focusing with effort. We fight. Luffy, Ace began, you can barely stand. You can't fight an emperor. Have to, Luffy insisted. He won't stop. Not ever. His gaze shifted to Marco. Tell me about Converging Island. Marco hesitated, then sighed. It's not on any map. Appears for just 12 hours every few decades when certain currents align. Pop said it contains ruins from the Void Century, maybe even information about ancient weapons. Joy Boy, Luffy murmured. Kaido mentioned that name again. A figure from ancient history, Jinbei explained. Connected to the Void Century and the promise to Fishman Island. But most of what we know is legend, not fact. Luffy tried to sit up but didn't have the strength. Why does he think I'm this Joy Boy person? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, Marco spoke. You're devil fruit. There are rumors about the Gomu Gomu no Mi, rumors that it's not what everyone thinks. What do you mean? Luffy asked, confusion evident on his face. Marco shook his head. Pops never wanted to burden you with this knowledge before you were ready. But he believed your fruit might be something ancient. Something the world government has been hunting for centuries. Luffy stared at his hand, flexing rubber fingers weakly. It's just the rubber fruit. Maybe, Marco conceded. Or maybe there's more to it. Kaido seems to think so. Before they could discuss further, a shout came from above, Marine ships closing. All hands, battle stations. Ace moved toward the door. I need to help. Luffy, stay here and rest. But, no arguments, Ace said firmly. I didn't get rescued just to watch you kill yourself trying to fight when you can barely move. With that, he left, Marco and Jinbei following after exchanging concerned glances. Luffy was left alone with the doctor, frustration and helplessness washing over him in equal measure. 3 days. 3 days to recover enough strength to face an emperor who had swatted away his strongest attacks like they were nothing. It wasn't enough time. Not nearly enough. But as exhaustion pulled him back toward unconsciousness, one thought burned in Luffy's mind: he would find a way. He had to. For Ace. For all of them. The next 2 days passed in a blur of pursuit, brief skirmishes, and desperate attempts to repair the damaged ships while staying ahead of both marine forces and Kaido's watchful eye. The beast pirates kept their distance, but their fleet remained visible on the horizon, a constant reminder of the deadline approaching. Luffy spent most of the first day sleeping, his body desperately trying to recover from the combined traumas of Impel Down and Marineford. By the second day, he was awake more often, eating everything brought to him in an attempt to regain his strength faster. "You should be resting for at least a week," the doctor scolded as Luffy attempted push-ups beside his bed. "Your body is still in critical condition." "Don't have a week," Luffy grunted, forcing himself through another repetition despite shaking arms. "Got less than 2 days now." The doctor threw up his hands in exasperation. "At least don't try using those gear techniques. Your organs are still recovering from the strain." Luffy just nodded, saving his breath for the exercise. He knew the doctor was right, he could feel how damaged his body was, how far from fighting shape. But he also knew Kaido wouldn't grant any extensions. Later that day, Marco visited, bringing news from their strategy session. "We've been analyzing Kaido's fighting style from what we saw," the Phoenix Man explained, leaning against the doorframe with his usual languid posture. "He relies heavily on brute force and durability." "Really strong," Luffy agreed, sitting cross-legged on his bed now. "My attacks didn't do anything." "Regular attacks won't work," Marco confirmed. "But everyone has a weakness." He studied Luffy curiously. "What's your plan?" Luffy's face scrunched in thought. "Hit him harder," he finally declared. Marco blinked, then sighed. "Of course that's your plan." He pushed off from the doorframe. "Look, none of us expect you to defeat Kaido. That's not realistic." "Then what's the point of going to the island?" "To buy time," Marco explained. "Vista and some of the others think we can negotiate. Offer an alliance maybe, or information about the poneglyphs. Anything to keep us all alive long enough to reach Allied territory." Luffy frowned. "Kaido doesn't want alliances or information. He wants." He trailed off, not sure how to finish the thought. "He wants you," Marco finished for him. "Or rather, what he thinks you represent." He paused. "Are you sure you want to go through with this? We could try to create a diversion, get you onto one of the smaller ships and—" "No," Luffy cut him off firmly. "I won't run away while everyone else faces danger because of me." Marco studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You really are something else, Straw Hat." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your brother's worried sick about you, you know. Maybe talk to him before you do anything reckless." As if summoned by the mention, Ace appeared in the doorway as Marco left. The brothers regarded each other in silence for a moment. "You look better," Ace finally said, moving to sit on the edge of Luffy's bed. "I'm fine," Luffy insisted, though they both knew it was far from true. Ace sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "This is my fault. If you hadn't come to rescue me—" "Don't," Luffy interrupted. "I'd do it again. Every time. That's what scares me." Ace's voice was unusually soft. "You never think about yourself. Only others." Luffy shrugged. "That's what brothers do." A complicated mix of emotions crossed Ace's face. "Luffy, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If things go badly at the island." Ace took a deep breath. "Promise you'll put yourself first for once. That you'll escape if you get the chance." Luffy's expression hardened. "I can't promise that." "Damn it, Luffy." Ace's control slipped, small flames dancing across his shoulders. "I'm not worth dying for." "You are to me," Luffy replied simply. The brothers stared at each other, an impasse of stubbornness. Finally, Ace's shoulders slumped. "We're really alike, you know that," he muttered. "Both too stupid to run from a fight." Luffy grinned weakly. "That's why we're brothers." Ace reached out, ruffling Luffy's hair like he used to when they were kids. "Get some rest. I'll check on you later." After Ace left, Luffy tried to sleep, knowing he needed every minute of recovery he could get. But his mind kept racing, replaying the battle with Kaido, trying to figure out how to do better next time. His devil fruit. That was the key, somehow. Marco had said there might be more to it than just rubber powers. But what? Luffy stared at his hand, willing it to reveal its secrets. It stretched when he pulled on it, just like always. Rubber. Nothing more. Or was there? He remembered moments in previous battles when he'd pushed beyond what should have been possible. Gear second, forcing his blood to pump faster. Gear third, inflating his bones. Both techniques that someone with just a rubber body shouldn't logically be able to do. What else might be possible if he pushed even further? The thought followed him into uneasy dreams, where a laughing figure with a sun-shaped aura danced just beyond his reach. Dawn of the third day broke with the announcement everyone had been dreading: Converging Island had fully materialized on the horizon. A massive, crescent-shaped landmass risen from the depths, covered in ruins that gleamed white in the morning sun. "It's bigger than I expected," Ace commented, standing beside Luffy at the rail. Despite the doctor's protests, Luffy had insisted on coming topside. He was still weak, but at least he could stand without assistance now. "Kaido's fleet is already there," Jinbei noted, pointing to ships anchored along the island's eastern curve. Marco nodded grimly. "And so are the Marines." He indicated the opposite side of the crescent, where Navy battleships had formed a blockade. "Three-way standoff," Ace muttered. "Just like Marineford all over again." Luffy studied the island with unusual intensity. Something about it called to him, a strange familiarity he couldn't explain. The white ruins rising from the green jungle looked almost like they were waiting for something. Or someone. "We should avoid landing near either fleet," Marco was saying, directing the helmsman. "There's a cove on the southern point that might offer some cover." Plans were made, strategies discussed. The remaining Whitebeard ships would create a defensive perimeter while a smaller party, including Luffy, Ace, Marco, and Jinbei, would go ashore to meet Kaido. As they approached the island, Luffy felt a strange energy in the air, an electric tension that made his skin prickle. Others seemed to feel it too, conversations dropping to whispers as they drew closer to shore. "There's something about this place," Jinbei murmured, staring at the ruins. "It feels alive." Marco nodded slowly. "Pop said the island itself is a relic from the Void Century. It's saturated with whatever power existed back then." "You mean like sea prism stone?" Ace asked. "No," Marco replied. "Something older. Something that existed before devil fruits." Luffy remained silent, still trying to understand the strange pull he felt toward the island. It wasn't threatening, exactly. More like recognition. They anchored in the southern cove as planned. No beast pirates or marines were visible from this position, but everyone remained on high alert as they lowered boats to go ashore. "Remember the plan," Marco told the assembled group. "We're here to talk, not fight. Buy time if possible. If things go wrong, the signal is 3 fire bursts from Ace." Everyone nodded, though few looked convinced that talking would accomplish anything with Kaido. The landing party made their way inland, following what appeared to be an ancient path leading from the beach toward the central ruins. Luffy walked under his own power, refusing help despite occasional stumbles. His strength was returning, but slowly, too slowly for what he suspected lay ahead. The jungle around them hummed with life, yet there was something unnatural about it. Plants that shouldn't grow together flourished side by side, and animals watched their passage with too intelligent eyes. "This place doesn't follow normal rules," Jinbei observed, noticing how freshwater and saltwater fish swam together in a stream they crossed. The currents that make it appear also bend reality around it, Marco explained. At least that's what Pops believed. They climbed higher, the path leading toward what appeared to be a massive stone amphitheater nestled between towering white ruins. As they crested the final rise, they saw Kaido already waiting in the center of the circular space. The Emperor stood alone, Kanabo resting on his shoulder, facing away from them as he studied an enormous stone tablet covered in strange symbols. Poneglyphs, Jinbei whispered in recognition. Kaido turned at their approach, a smile spreading across his scarred face. Right on time, he called, voice echoing across the amphitheater. And you brought Fire Fist and the Phoenix. Good. Witnesses are important for historic moments. Luffy stepped forward, intentionally placing himself ahead of the others. I'm here like you wanted. Let's finish this. Kaido assessed him with calculating eyes. You look better, but still far from your best. He shook his head. Disappointing. I was hoping for a proper test of your abilities. You'll get one, Luffy promised, stretching his arms to loosen them. I'm stronger than I look. The Emperor laughed, the sound rumbling like distant thunder. Bold words from a rookie who couldn't even dent me 2 days ago. He gestured around at the amphitheater. Do you know what this place is, Straw Hat? Luffy glanced around, noting how the stone seats were arranged in a perfect circle, all facing an elaborate design carved into the floor, a sun with 16 rays extending outward. Some old ruins, he answered with a shrug. Kaido's expression darkened slightly. Not just any ruins. This is where the first Joy Boy revealed his powers over 800 years ago. He stepped onto the sun carving. Where the man who nearly toppled the world first awakened his true potential. Marco tensed beside Luffy. How do you know that? There's no historical record of Joy Boy's powers. There are ways to know things beyond books and records, Kaido replied cryptically. Ways to hear the voice of history itself, if you know how to listen. His gaze returned to Luffy. And history says that Joy Boy will return. That his power will reawaken in one worthy successor. And you think that's me, Luffy stated flatly. I think it might be, Kaido corrected. That's what we're here to find out. He rolled his massive shoulders, an anticipatory gesture. The conditions are perfect, the island manifested, the descendant of D with the same fruit, even the marines providing danger to push you to your limits. What fruit? Ace demanded. What are you talking about? Kaido ignored him, focusing solely on Luffy. The world government calls it the Gomu Gomu no Mi. A paramecia type that gives the user a rubber body. His smile widened. But its true name is something they've tried to erase from history. Something far more dangerous. Luffy felt a strange sensation in his chest, a rhythmic thumping that didn't quite match his heartbeat. I don't care what you call it, he said, trying to ignore the feeling. My fruit lets me stretch. That's all that matters. Is it? Kaido challenged. Then explain your gears. Explain how a simple rubber man forces his body to do things that should kill him. Explain how you've survived injuries that would end anyone else. Luffy had no answer for that. He'd never questioned how his gears worked, only that they did. Kaido stepped forward, his massive form casting a shadow over Luffy. The Gomu Gomu no Mi is special, Straw Hat. It's been waiting for centuries for the right user. For someone with the will of D and the unbending spirit to awaken its true form. And what form is that? Marco asked cautiously. The most ridiculous power in the world, Kaido replied, eyes gleaming with something like anticipation. The power of a god who brings freedom wherever he goes. The strange thumping in Luffy's chest intensified. He pressed a hand against it, confused by the sensation. Enough talk, he declared, dropping into a fighting stance. If you want to test me so badly, let's go. Kaido's smile widened. As you wish. Without further warning, he swung his Kanabo in a devastating arc aimed directly at Luffy's head. Luffy! Ace shouted in alarm, starting forward. But Luffy was already moving, the instincts honed through countless battles guiding him. He ducked under the swing, the massive club passing close enough to ruffle his hair. Gear second, he called, skin steaming as his blood pumped faster. The familiar power surged through him, though weaker than usual due to his not fully recovered state. He launched into a counterattack immediately. Gomu Gomu no Jet Pistol. His fist shot forward at blinding speed, coated in armament haki. It connected solidly with Kaido's chest, and had about as much effect as punching a mountain. Kaido didn't even flinch. Is that all? Luffy didn't waste breath responding. He knew he needed more power. Gear third. His arm inflated massively, hardening with haki. Gomu Gomu no Elephant Gun. The giant fist crashed into Kaido with enough force to create a shockwave that rippled across the amphitheater. For a moment, it seemed like it might have had an effect. Kaido slid back half a step. Then the Emperor straightened, completely unharmed. Better. But nowhere near enough. Before Luffy could react, Kaido's Kanabo slammed into his side. Even with his rubber body absorbing some of the impact, the force sent him flying across the amphitheater. He crashed into one of the stone seats, the ancient material cracking from the collision. Luffy! Ace moved to help, but Marco caught his arm. Wait, the Phoenix man cautioned. This is what Kaido wants, to push him to his breaking point. Ace's expression darkened. So we just watch while he beats my brother to death. We intervene when we must, Marco replied grimly. But too soon, and we might prevent what needs to happen. Luffy pulled himself from the rubble, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. The combined strain of gear second and third was already taking its toll on his weakened body, but he forced himself to stand. That all you got? He taunted, trying to sound stronger than he felt. Kaido approached slowly, deliberately. You disappoint me, Straw Hat. I expected more from Roger's spiritual successor. The mention of the Pirate King sparked something in Luffy. Don't compare me to him, he growled, launching himself forward again. I'm going to surpass Roger. I'm going to be king of the pirates. His attacks came faster now, a flurry of gear second enhanced punches and kicks. Kaido blocked some, let others land, seeming more interested in Luffy's determination than concerned about the attacks themselves. The will is there, the Emperor observed, catching one of Luffy's punches in his massive hand. But the power remains dormant. He squeezed, and Luffy gasped as pain shot up his arm despite its rubber nature. Kaido's haki was overwhelming his own. Perhaps you need more motivation, Kaido mused, glancing at Ace and the others. Like at Marineford. Luffy's eyes widened. No. Leave them out of this. Then show me what you're capable of, Kaido challenged, releasing Luffy's fist and stepping back. Show me Joy Boy's power. Frustration and desperation built in Luffy's chest. He didn't understand what Kaido wanted from him. He was already using his strongest techniques, pushing his body beyond its limits. I don't know what you're talking about, he shouted, the strange thumping in his chest growing louder. This is all I've got. Kaido's expression darkened with disappointment. Then you're not the one after all. He raised his Kanabo high. What a waste of time. The weapon descended with terrible force. Luffy raised both arms to block, coating them in haki, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Kaido's strength was on another level entirely. The impact came with a thunderous crack. Luffy felt his haki shatter, pain shooting through both arms. He dropped to one knee, gasping. Still conscious? Kaido noted with mild surprise. Your durability is impressive, at least. From the edge of the amphitheater, Ace could watch no longer. That's enough. He shouted, flames erupting around his body as he charged forward. Ace, wait. Marco called, but too late. Fire Fist reached Kaido in seconds, launching a barrage of flaming attacks. Get away from my brother. Kaido regarded the new challenger with irritation. I have no quarrel with you, Fire Fist. He batted away Ace's attacks with his Kanabo. But if you insist on interfering. The Emperor moved with that same impossible speed, suddenly behind Ace. Before the fire user could react, Kaido's fist slammed into his back, sending him crashing face first into the stone floor. Ace! Luffy screamed, struggling to his feet. Kaido planted a foot on Ace's back, keeping him pinned. Stay down, Fire Fist. This is between me and your brother. Ace struggled against the massive weight, but couldn't break free. Run, Luffy, he gasped. Get out of here. But Luffy wasn't listening. Something had changed in his eyes, a dangerous intensity replacing the pain and exhaustion. Let him go. Each word came out like a physical force, the air around Luffy seeming to vibrate with his anger. Kaido's eyes narrowed with renewed interest. Make me. The thumping in Luffy's chest became deafening, drowning out all other sounds. It wasn't his heartbeat, it was something older, something that had been waiting a very long time to wake up. I said, Luffy growled, voice deepening as the air around him began to shimmer, let him go. A wave of Conqueror's haki exploded from him, more powerful than anything he'd ever produced before. It washed across the amphitheater like a physical force, cracking stone and causing even Marco and Jinbei to stagger back. Kaido stood firm against it, but his eyes widened with something like recognition. Yes, he breathed. There it is. The haki was only the beginning. As Luffy stepped forward, his body began to change. Steam rose from his skin, but different from Gear's second, whiter, more cloud-like. The sun symbol beneath his feet began to glow in response. I don't know what's happening, Luffy admitted, staring at his hands as they seemed to pulse with an inner light. But I'm not letting you hurt Ace again. Kaido removed his foot from Ace's back, all his attention now focused on the transformation occurring before him. The awakening, he murmured. Finally. The strange rhythm in Luffy's chest matched the pulsing glow of his skin now. It felt like drums, beating a pattern as old as time itself. The drums of liberation, calling him to embrace something he'd always been meant to become. What is this? Luffy gasped, as power unlike anything he'd ever felt before surged through him. His hair began to lighten, turning white before their eyes. Your true form, Kaido answered, something like reverence in his voice. The form the world government has feared for 800 years. The transformation accelerated. Luffy's body seemed to radiate light now, his usual red vest bleaching to white. The ground beneath his feet cracked as reality itself seemed to bend around him. Luffy? Ace called, pushing himself to his knees, staring in shock at his brother's changing appearance. Luffy couldn't answer. The drums consumed his consciousness now, beating louder and louder. His heartbeat stopped momentarily, and then resumed in perfect synchronization with the ancient rhythm. Kaido raised his kanabo, eyes gleaming with excitement. Show me what Joy Boy can do, he challenged, swinging the massive weapon directly at Luffy's head. Time seemed to slow. Luffy saw the attack coming but felt no fear. Instead, a strange sense of freedom washed over him, as if chains he hadn't even known existed had suddenly fallen away. The kanabo connected squarely with his head. In previous battles, even with his rubber body, such a blow would have knocked him unconscious. But now, his head deformed around the impact, stretching impossibly far before snapping back like a cartoon character. Luffy blinked in surprise, then grinned, a wide, manic expression that seemed to light up his entire face. That didn't hurt at all, he exclaimed, voice pitched higher with excitement. That's so cool. Kaido's eyes widened further. The power of imagination made real, he murmured. Just as the legends described. Luffy looked down at his transformed body, flexing fingers that seemed to glow from within. I feel amazing. He bounced on his toes, leaving small craters in the stone floor with each impact. Like I can do anything. The Emperor stepped back, watching with a mixture of awe and calculation. Nika, he said, the name hanging in the air between them. The Sun God. The warrior of liberation whose laughter brings freedom to all who hear it. I don't know about all that, Luffy replied, still examining his new form with childlike wonder. But I feel really, really good. Without warning, he launched himself at Kaido, moving faster than anyone could track. His fist connected with the Emperor's jaw with a sound like thunder, actually lifting the massive man off his feet and sending him crashing into the amphitheater wall. Everyone stared in shock. Luffy had just done what seemed impossible moments before, landed a truly effective blow on Kaido. The Emperor pushed himself from the rubble, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. But rather than anger, his face showed savage delight. Yes, he roared, charging forward with Kanabo raised. Show me more. What followed defied description. Luffy moved with impossible speed and flexibility, his body stretching and contorting in ways that rubber alone couldn't explain. He seemed to grasp the air itself, using it as a platform to launch devastating attacks. Gomu Gomu no, he began, then paused, head tilting curiously. No, that's not right anymore, is it? A smile spread across his face, wild and joyous. This is. He pulled his arm back, the limb stretching impossibly far while growing to colossal size. The air around it rippled with barely contained power. Budgerum gun. Luffy shouted as the giant fist shot forward, trailing white lightning. The impact when it connected with Kaido created a shockwave that shook the entire island. The Emperor blocked with his Kanabo, but the force still drove him back, feet carving trenches in the stone floor. Incredible, Marco breathed, watching the battle unfold. I've never seen anything like this. Ace could only stare, barely recognizing the laughing, glowing figure that had been his little brother moments before. What happened to him? His devil fruit awakened, Jinbei answered, awe evident in his voice. But this is unlike any awakening I've ever witnessed. On the battlefield, Kaido recovered quickly, launching a counterattack that would have pulverized anyone else. But Luffy dodged with playful ease, his body flowing like liquid around the blows. You're strong, Luffy acknowledged, voice resonating with newfound power. But I feel like I can take you now. Kaido's grin widened. We'll see about that, Joy Boy. The battle escalated, each exchange creating shockwaves that damaged the ancient amphitheater around them. Stone cracked, pillars collapsed, and the ground itself began to fracture beneath the force of their clashes. But something else was happening too. Each time Luffy landed a blow, each time he laughed with the pure joy of battle, the island itself seemed to respond. The runes on the stone tablets glowed, the sun symbol beneath their feet pulsed with light. The island recognizes him, Marco realized, watching the phenomenon spread. It's responding to his awakening. Distant shouts reached them, marine forces and beast pirates converging on the amphitheater, drawn by the massive energy releases from the battle. We've got company, Jinbei warned, turning to face the new threat. Hold them off, Ace ordered, eyes never leaving his transformed brother. Whatever's happening here, Luffy needs time to finish it. Marco nodded, blue flames erupting around his body as he transformed into his phoenix form. I'll take the east approach. Jinbei, you take west. As they moved to intercept the approaching forces, the battle between Luffy and Kaido reached new heights of intensity. The Emperor had shifted to his dragon form, azure scales gleaming as he circled above. Heat breath. Kaido roared, unleashing a massive blast of fire from his maw. Luffy didn't dodge. Instead, he reached out and, impossibly, grabbed the flames like a physical object, twisting them into a spiral before hurling them back. I can do that now, he exclaimed, delighted by the discovery. So cool. Kaido barely avoided his own attack, blue eyes widening with surprise. The power of a god, he murmured. To bend reality itself. Luffy launched himself upward, arms stretching to grab onto Kaido's horn. He swung around the massive dragon, building momentum before releasing to deliver a devastating kick to Kaido's jaw. The impact sent the dragon crashing back to earth, the ground shaking with his landing. Dust and debris filled the air, momentarily obscuring both combatants. When it cleared, Kaido had reverted to his human form, standing amid the rubble with blood flowing freely from several wounds. Yet his expression remained excited, almost euphoric. "This is what I've waited decades to see," he declared. The return of Joy Boy. The power that nearly toppled the world 800 years ago. Luffy landed across from him, white hair flowing as if in a breeze despite the still air. His eyes glowed with inner light, but his expression had grown more serious. "I don't care about ancient history," he stated, voice carrying a newfound authority. "I care about right now. About my friends. About my brother." He pointed at Kaido. "You threatened them. That ends today." Kaido's smile widened. "Big words, Straw Hat. But do you have the power to back them up?" Before Luffy could respond, new voices joined the fray as Marines and Beast Pirates reached the amphitheater simultaneously. "There they are," a Marine Vice Admiral called. "Straw Hat, Luffy and Kaido. All forces, attack." From the opposite side, Kaido's commanders issued similar orders. "Protect Lord Kaido. Capture Straw Hat." Chaos erupted as three forces collided. Marco and Jinbei fought valiantly to keep the newcomers from reaching Luffy, but they were quickly overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Ace, seeing his brother in danger of being swarmed, unleashed a massive wall of fire to create a temporary barrier. "Luffy. Finish this now." Luffy nodded, understanding the urgency. He turned back to Kaido, who stood watching the chaos with amused detachment. "Your awakening is impressive," the Emperor conceded. "But still incomplete. You've barely scratched the surface of what Nika's power can do." "Maybe," Luffy agreed, the glow around him intensifying. "But it's enough to beat you." With that declaration, he launched his final attack. His arm stretched backward, seemingly disappearing into the distance before returning, growing to colossal size as it approached. The fist glowed with combined armament and conqueror's haki, trailing white lightning that cracked the very air. Jumyu no." Luffy began, then shook his head, smiling. "No. Hito Nomi, model Nika." The massive fist shot forward with unstoppable force, the very concept of physics seeming to bend around it. "Supreme King Kong Gun." Kaido raised his kanabo to block, coating it with his own haki. The two powers collided with apocalyptic force. For a moment, they seemed evenly matched, neither yielding an inch. Then Luffy's attack pushed through. Kaido's kanabo cracked, something previously thought impossible, and the giant fist continued on to connect squarely with the Emperor's chest. The impact created a shockwave unlike anything witnessed before. A perfect circle of destruction expanded outward, the ground itself splitting open. Marines and Beast Pirates alike were thrown back by the force, many losing consciousness instantly. When the dust settled, Kaido lay in a crater at the center of the amphitheater, conscious but clearly damaged. Blood flowed from numerous wounds, and for the first time, his expression showed something beyond excitement or amusement, it showed respect. "So," the Emperor coughed, pushing himself up on one elbow. "It really is you." Luffy stood at the crater's edge, the white glow around him beginning to fade as the transformation reached its time limit. "It's over, Kaido. Leave my friends alone." Before the Emperor could respond, the ground beneath them lurched violently. The entire island seemed to shudder, massive cracks spreading through the ancient stone. "What's happening?" Ace shouted, struggling to keep his balance as the ground heaved beneath him. "The island is collapsing." Marco called back, reverting to human form. The battle must have destabilized it. Indeed, the ruins around them were crumbling, massive stone blocks falling into newly formed chasms. The sea began to reclaim parts of the shore, waves crashing over land that had risen only days before. Converging Island appears for 12 hours only, Jinbei explained, helping a dazed marine to his feet despite their earlier battle. But the awakening of Nika's power must have accelerated the process. Luffy, still in his partially transformed state, looked around at the devastation. Marines and pirates alike were now focused solely on survival, former enemies helping each other escape falling debris. "We need to evacuate," he declared, the authority in his voice causing even Marines to listen. "Everyone to the ships." Kaido pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly but still formidable. "This isn't over, Straw Hat," he rumbled. "It's barely begun." With that, he transformed into his dragon form and launched into the sky, circling once before heading toward his fleet. His commanders, recognizing the retreat order, began pulling back as well. "Luffy!" Ace called, rushing to his brother's side. "We need to go. Now." Luffy nodded, feeling the transformation fading rapidly. The white hair returned to black, the glow dimming. With it went the incredible strength and energy, leaving him exhausted beyond measure. His legs buckled. Ace caught him before he hit the ground. "I got you, little brother," Ace assured him, lifting Luffy onto his back. "Let's get out of here." They ran for the ships, the island disintegrating around them. Marco took to the air in phoenix form, guiding them through the safest path as Jinbei cleared obstacles with his fishman karate. Behind them, the ancient amphitheater collapsed entirely, the sun symbol and its secrets buried once more beneath the waves. "What happened back there?" Ace asked as they reached the beach where their boats waited. "What was that transformation?" Luffy, barely conscious on his brother's back, managed a weak smile. "I think I finally figured out my devil fruit." "And?" Ace prompted, carefully placing Luffy in one of the boats. Luffy's eyes drifted closed, exhaustion claiming him. But before unconsciousness took him completely, he whispered, "I'm not just rubber. I'm freedom." As their boat pushed off from the rapidly submerging island, Marco and Jinbei exchanged meaningful glances. "The Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika," Marco said quietly. "The human fruit, sun god type. A mythical zoan that the world government renamed and hid for centuries. A fruit with the power to bring freedom wherever it goes," Jinbei added, watching Luffy's peaceful face as he slept. "How fitting for someone like him." Ace stared at his brother in wonder. "All this time, we thought he just had a weak paramecia type." "There's nothing weak about Monkey D. Luffy," Marco stated with absolute certainty. "And after today, the world will never be the same." As they reached the Moby Dick, the last visible pieces of converging island slipped beneath the waves, taking its ancient secrets with it. But the greatest secret had already been revealed, in the form of a rubber boy with the power to change the world. On the horizon, Kaido's fleet had begun to withdraw, the Emperor having apparently decided that this battle was over, for now. The Marines, too, seemed more interested in rescuing their scattered forces than pursuing the pirates. Aboard the Moby Dick, Luffy was carried to the medical bay, still deeply unconscious from the strain of his first awakening. The doctor examined him with growing amazement. "His body is healing itself at an incredible rate," the doctor reported. "Wounds that should take weeks are closing before my eyes." Ace sat beside his brother's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. "So what happens now?" he asked no one in particular. Marco, leaning against the doorframe, sighed. Now the world government comes after him with everything they have. What we witnessed today, what he became, is their greatest fear realized. They'll have to go through me first," Ace stated, the promise of fire in his eyes. "Through all of us," Jinbei corrected, standing beside him. As night fell and the Whitebeard fleet sailed on to safer waters, the legend of what happened at Converging Island began to spread. Marines who witnessed the battle told their superiors. Beast pirates reported to Kaido. Den Mushi calls crossed the Grand Line carrying impossible tales of a white-haired warrior with the power of a sun god. And in the darkness of Marineford, 5 Elder Stars convened in emergency session, faces grave as they received the news they had dreaded for centuries: Nika has awakened. Joy Boy has returned. The dawn of a new era had begun, heralded by the laughter of a boy in a straw hat and the beating of drums as old as freedom itself. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.